What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. For those of you who don't know, my name is Adam James. In today's episode, we're going to learn how to create a logo based on an SVG file within Fusion 360. Once we've created it in Fusion 360, we're going to go ahead and export it to Ultimaker Cura and send it off to a 3D printer so we can make a physical model. Again, we can do this with any kind of SVG file, but I thought for the purpose of this video, the Google logo would be a good example due to all the colors, and I wanted to utilize my dual-headed extruder, so this is what I came up with. Let's get started. So once we're in the Fusion 360 workspace, you'll notice I have 4 different components for this Google logo. Each is a separate color. I'll go ahead and hide them, at least the first component, so we can see that I have essentially an intersecting feature, which is this slotted extruded feature. Reason being is to allow more surface area upon contact of these two 3D printed materials. Again, if you have a single-headed extruder and you're planning on creating this all in one color, you could simply just import the SVG file and then export it as an STL file. But if you are utilizing a dual-headed extruder, it makes sense that there's more surface area, at least in the X and Y direction, so it utilizes more contact area and therefore doesn't just split right down the middle if you were to 3D print these components and simply just rely on the contact surface area going in the Z direction. So this is kind of what I came up with, and it worked pretty well. These are pretty strong, right? The yellow and red are the same print, 2 different extruder colors, and that's not going anywhere. This is a press fit feature between the yellow and the green, and then the blue and the green again are just like the red and yellow. And excuse this for not being a very correct representation of what the green should look like in the Google logo. It's what I had. Now, if you do have a single-headed extruder, what you could do, if you have access to all these different colored filaments, although a little tedious, you could essentially create the same snap fit feature that I have between the yellow and green and do that all the way across throughout every single color. So these are not a press fit feature, meaning that there is no tolerance in between this green portion and the yellow portion. Now when we go in between the yellow and green components, there is a 0.2 millimeter offset around the slotted extrusion. And the reason I did that is because I have a 0.4 millimeter diameter nozzle head, and I typically find that a press fit works pretty well at 0.2 millimeters for a 0.4 millimeter head nozzle. It's going to be different nozzle to nozzle, printer to printer, and I recommend you guys try it out yourselves and kind of tamper with different press fit offsets and tolerances. But for the purpose of this video, we will be using a 0.2 millimeter offset between this green and the yellow feature here. Oh, that's not the yellow feature, right here. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So we will create a new component here. Then what we're going to do is save this as Google assembly. Just press enter. And then we are going to go over to none other than Google and type in Google logo SVG file. Click on images, and then make sure we just find one with a transparent background. This one looks a little fuzzy. I think let's go ahead and click on vector. Actually, I think this is where I found it. Let's see here. So this one looks pretty good. This is seeklogo.net. I will link this in the description. Go ahead and right click on this and then save as image. I already have this image saved, so I'm not going to do that. Once you have that image, go ahead and click on New Sketch. You can click on the top plane here. And then what I'm going to do is create some construction lines. So reason I'm doing that is I know my printer bed X and Y are 8.5 by 8.5 inches, but I don't want the logo design to exceed that. So I'm just creating some construction lines to essentially what we're doing is create some outer bounds. So what I'm going to do is make this guy 7.5 inches, and let's do symmetry here. And make this guy 7.5 inches. Again, I'm kind of straying away from saying step-by-step instructions. I uploaded an absolute beginner's Fusion 360 tutorial for that exact reason. So if you're having some trouble following along, I highly recommend you go ahead and click on that video and learn more about Fusion 360 and some of the quick at least fundamentals of 3D modeling and design within Fusion. So now we've got our construction lines that are all symmetric. So these outer bounds are essentially 7.5 by 7.5 millimeters. Then we want to go to Insert SVG. Here's our Google logo. Again, you can do this with any kind of logo you want as long as it is a SVG logo. Typically you can filter those out by selecting vector. What vector allows you to do is extrude enclosed surfaces that encompass that logo within Fusion 360. So it makes it very, very convenient, as you'll see. So we will select OK. So it's already got all of the lines and curves that we would like to utilize within this design. So we don't even really have to do any sketching except for the snap fit or press fit feature rather once we model this. So we've got our Google logo. This looks great. We will finish sketch. And then we're going to go ahead and click on extrude. So what we're going to do first is if you only have a single-headed extruder, and you only want to print it in one color, you could just select each and every one of these portions, just do 10 millimeters and click OK. And what you've got here is a Google logo, right? Pretty cool. And then from here you can go to the top left and click on 3D print. But for the purpose of this example, we're going to go a little more in depth. So we will go back to the sketch, right click on it, and do edit. Oops, excuse me, we will finish sketch, and we're going to actually delete this extrusion. Go up to the top left here, make sure our sketch is shown, and we're going to extrude just this first portion. And we're going to extrude it the same amount, 10 millimeters. Oops, I forgot to select this, so we're going to go back and edit. Make sure it encapsulates all of these different components. Click OK. Do the same thing. Select this feature, select this feature. It did not select it again. 10. But this go around, we're actually going to do new body. And that's going to essentially separate these two bodies, even though they're connected by a surface. So click OK. We're going to extrude again. 10 millimeters, new body. Click OK. We're going to extrude one last time and 10 millimeters and make sure it's new body. Great. So this is what we're working with. And just to kind of stay organized, what I would like to do got all these different bodies. Right click on each one and then assign an appearance to it. Doesn't really matter what material it is, just kind of search by color. Acrylic red is fine. You could probably go a little more. Actually, that doesn't even look good. Aluminum. Okay, that's fine. That'll look better than a transparent material for sure. Okay, there's red. Yellow. Plastic glossy. Nah, I kind of like the matte finish better. Yellow. Green. And blue. Boom, and then click close. So that's just kind of for our reference, especially when we're assigning different extruder heads specific geometric features to print. This will be very helpful. So once we do that, we actually want to make some new components. Reason for making new components is that when we go to 3D print this geometry, at least when using a slicer like Ultimaker Cura, it likes to reference components rather than geometry. So if you export a component within Fusion 360 as an STL file, and then select all those models within the slicer and do merge, it's actually going to remember the reference geometry that's correlated by component to component so that it knows where they are in reference to each other. So if you, for example, exported body 2 and body 3 here without assigning them a component, it wouldn't necessarily know where they should be located. So that's the purpose of assigning these bodies individual components. So we want this to be just body 2. Actually, let's just... Okay, this is the parent, select OK. We should be able to drag and drop. Yep, so this component is now red. Just do new component. Name this yellow. Whoops, yellow. And we'll grab body 3, put it in there. Do new component again. We will name this green. Oh, green. I actually broke my wrist over a month ago, so typing and working has been a struggle nonetheless, but still in it to make videos for you guys. So your support is very much appreciated. If you haven't already, feel free to smash the like button, comment, and subscribe for more. It means a lot. Alright, so blue, body 5, let's bring it into blue. Okay, cool. Alright, we go through all of these and they are all correctly assigned. Great. Okay. So what I'd like to do is create essentially a press fit feature in between the green and yellow components. So what we're going to do, in order to do that, we go to green, highlight it, then we're going to hide the yellow, and then click on this face here and do sketch. I think my mesh visual, yeah, okay. Shaded with visible edges only. I really like using that. I don't know how I made it this far without having edges visible, but just one of my pet peeves. We will create a line from the middle to the middle of either edge, just to give you some reference. This is essentially what we're doing. Go back to look at. Then we want to make this a construction line. We're going to do the same on the bottom. Make this guy a construction line from the bottom to the top. And then we're going to go to create slot center to center. Okay, great. I do not want this to be a construction line, so we click X or select X on the keyboard. Great. And we will start assigning our dimensions here. I'm going to give this an offset of 4 millimeters. That wouldn't even be possible because the thickness is only 10 millimeters. Actually, let's do maybe 3. Yep. And then let's create a line that is a construction. Click X from here to here. That allows us to select up a point when we are defining a dimension. This guy, let's just do maybe 6. And we want this to be symmetric, so we will select both of these and the center line to make it fully constrained. Great, and finish the sketch. Okay, let's go ahead and extrude this the opposite direction, so I'm just going to do -10, I think will work. And I want to make sure that there's enough space. I think that should be enough. I'm not necessarily concerned to it. This is not a model once physically printed that will be susceptible to structural loading conditions, so I think that wall thickness is okay. Again, we're not injection molding this, so uniform wall thickness doesn't really matter, so we will do okay. Let's highlight our yellow component and then we'll activate it. Now let's hide the green one and sketch on this yellow component face. We're going to create a sketch, but save a couple steps here. Highlight the green component, hide the yellow, and essentially just project the geometry that we just created onto the face with which we are sketching on. So we can't see it right now because we hid the yellow component. Let's hide the green one again. Look at the face we're sketching on. Oops. Great. And then what I'd like to do is make all of these, whoops, didn't want to delete that. Command Z. Make all of these construction lines. Okay, and then we will create an offset of, you guessed it, 0.2 millimeters, and I am not holding command, so we're just selecting individual components. Okay. Modify, offset. -0.2. Make sure that looks pretty good. Click OK. And we can see that this is now 0.2 millimeters smaller than the feature that we just created. And we are going to extrude this 9.5 millimeters to allow 0.5 millimeter of clearance between the end of the slotted hole that we just created. 9.5. Great. Okay. So let's go ahead and show this. So as you can see, we've got 0.5 millimeters of clearance. And then if we kind of rotate it, you'll see that the yellow component does not go all the way up to the edge. There's this 0.2 millimeter gap in between those two components to allow for a press fit. Again, I highly recommend just kind of testing different offsets for a press fit feature to feature solution that works for your printer specifically. Okay, every printer will be different. Okay, so now that we've done this, what I would like to do is we're still going to work on the yellow component, but we're going to hide the red one here. And then we're going to sketch on this side of the yellow component. Now these will not be press fits. What these will be, and I mentioned this earlier, but these will be essentially geometry that's going to help help with the structural integrity of this model. And you'll see what I mean as we get into Ultimaker Cura, and I have a time lapse which half of the first portion didn't even work, so we're going to use it anyway, but I think you'll get the point. So I think once I lay that time lapse over, you'll see like half of the first, it's either red or yellow components being printed, and then the full green and blue. It might be the other way around actually. Okay, and then we'll go to slot, center to center. Okay, and dimension, make this 3, line, make it a construction. You could also probably just put a point here instead of doing this construction line. It's just, sometimes you get into habit forming techniques when modeling, so that's a habit of mine. We'll make this 7 millimeters, I think, and make these symmetric. Okay, looking pretty good. Finish sketch. We're going to select this area we just sketched and extrude it, you guessed it, 10 millimeters. Click OK. 10 millimeters seems to be the key of this entire model. 10 millimeters thick, 10 millimeter extrusions. Okay, now we're going to show the red model and activate it. And then we're going to hide the yellow component. I keep saying components versus model. They're components. Hopefully you understand what I mean. And we're going to sketch, and then we're going to press P for project. Shift middle click so that we can see what we're working with, show the yellow component, hide the red one, and click on the surfaces that we just extruded. Click OK. Oops, and then it says the object that you were creating is not visible, so of course it's not, because we need to show the red model, or component. I did it again. Okay, finish sketch. Now, this is the one unique thing about this, is we're not creating an offset. And the reason being is we don't need to, because these aren't going to be press fit into each other. They are going to be one solid 3D printed model in 2 different colors. And instead of essentially just relying on this Z-axis for plastic, I guess, kind of welding or bonding, it's going to use all of the surface area contact based on the slotted feature interference that we just created. So that's my 2 cents. You could model it differently, but that's how we're doing it in this video. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing in between the green and blue components. So we'll go to green, hide the blue one, sketch. Again, if you have not already, smash the like button and subscribe for more content. I try to push these out once every 3 weeks. I think is a reasonable goal. Sometimes it's more like once every other week, and then once it's like like sometimes my schedule is busy, so it's once every like month. So it's dependent on how much work is going on and what I can make and dedicate time to create these videos for you guys. So dimension, make this guy 4 millimeters. Oops, 3, sorry. From line X. This guy's 7. And we'll make these symmetric. Finish sketch. Extrude 10 millimeters. Okie doke. And we're going to do the same thing here. So let's show this blue component. We're going to activate the blue component here. Hide the green one. And then sketch. P for project. Hide the blue one. Show the green. Click OK. Show the blue, hide the green. And finish sketch. Okay, we're going to extrude this. Negative 10 millimeters. Do OK. And show the green just to make sure we've got this. Great. Okay, that's all there is to it. So now we're going to send these over to Ultimaker Cura. What we want to do first is these will need to be printed in 2 different operations, even with a dual-headed extruder. Reason being is because we can only incorporate 2 materials per print. So how I printed this was the red and yellow component first, and then the green and blue one next. So I will show how to incorporate one of them, and that should be all you need to successfully 3D print this model and snap them together, or press fit them together. So we'll just do these guys. So let's activate the red one, select the red component, and do 3D print. Make sure the refinement's on high, and then click OK. We can send to the 3D print utility. Use this if you already have Cura installed. If you're using a different slicer, you can unselect that, press OK, and then save it to another file destination. I'm just going to use send to 3D print utility because it's been working pretty well for me. So as we go over to Cura, you'll see it just imported there nicely for us. And then we'll go here, activate the component, click on the component, 3D print, looks pretty good, and click OK. And now we are in Cura. So assuming our left or extruder 1 is red and our extruder 2 is yellow, extruder 1 can be left as is, but what we need to do is define this yellow component as extruder 2. So we'll right click and select extruder 2, and you'll notice it's just it's more of a dark yellow color now. Next step is to right click, select all models, right click again, and do merge models. And what you'll see is it becomes one 3D printable model with different colors assigned to the red and yellow components. So this is really helpful, especially if you don't want to necessarily print this all in white and then acrylic paint everything manually. Again, you do have to have specific printers, and more specifically a dual-headed extruder printer that allows you to use this functionality. But I highly recommend it. I think it's super fun and adds a little bit more flavor to some of your 3D prints and the capabilities of the prints that you can create. So there we have it. You can go ahead and select different printer and slicer settings. We're not going to go into that. That's not the purpose of this. If we sliced this now, we would be presented with a G-code from Ultimaker Cura that we could then send to our 3D printer and successfully print a two-colored Google logo, or half of a two-colored Google logo, that is. You can follow these same steps for the other portion and then snap fit them as seen here. Feel free to leave some comments below. Let me know how yours turned out. And with that being said, I think that's the end of the video. Again, smash the like button. Feel free to comment and subscribe if you'd like to see more. And I will catch you in the next one. Peace.